Hello, everyone. Looks like we are just about ready to get started here, and we have a fantastic turnout. So I'm real excited about this call. Let me just get started by saying that you are on a call with Clear Vision, and we are going to discuss what to know before you sell. And this is going to help any of you who are even contemplating selling your business in the next couple of years. So give us just about one more second and we will get started. Okay, so my name is Dawn Drozd, and I am the founder and CEO of Clear Vision. I have had the business since 2005, so 9/11 had happened and the economy wasn't doing great, but we were not in the final throes of recession just yet. But that's when I started my company. Prior to that, I owned two other companies, so I do have a lot of years of small business ownership experience. I have talked the talk and walked the walk for a very, very long time. I also am the author of a book called The Success Code, and that book is based on over 50 interviews that I did with business owners who did have success during the recession. I was very curious in different industries why some business owners had success and others didn't, right within the same industry. And so I did not start out to write a book, but I was curious and started interviewing business owners, and pretty soon started to hear a pattern of principles that they shared with me that they felt like had made a huge difference. And those principles went into my book, again called The Success Code. And lastly, I want to share that I am from a family of founders. Again, not only have I owned a couple of businesses, but my entire family have been business owners. And so this stuff runs absolutely in my blood. So I want to tell you a little bit about how I got involved in mergers and acquisitions and helping companies build value. It was about a year ago, and I heard a statistic that absolutely sent chills up and down my spine. I was talking to somebody about businesses that went on the market for sale and currently was not working in the mergers and acquisitions field. But I was having this conversation, and they told me that only 20% of the businesses that actually go on the market get to the final closing. So yes, it's exactly what I just said. 8 out of 10 of the business owners who are counting more than likely on the sale of this business to help them fund their retirement, they aren't going to have any money to be able to fund their retirement. They're usually either just close their doors and go away, or they sell off in pieces. And that statistic just was not acceptable to me. And the second statistic that I heard was even when companies do sell, when they go back and survey the owners that sold the business 2 years after the transaction closes, 95% of them said that they were unhappy with the way that the transaction had gone down and with what had happened to their business since they walked away from it. Those are just absolutely unacceptable statistics to me, and it's why I was absolutely passionate about getting involved in this business. And what's interesting is I can also tie this back to my family. And I can tell you that my dad owned his own business. He started it from scratch. And when he wanted to sell it, he did. He was able to sell it. He was able to get the money he wanted to. But a few years later, the man who bought it had absolutely run it into the ground, and he ended up selling it off to a much larger corporation that bought it and continued to drive it into the ground, and so on and so forth. My father is 87 years old. This is a brick and mortar location, and he still has to drive past that location and see what it's become, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. The other story that I can tell you about is my sister, who also tried to sell her business. She's a doctor. And she brought practitioner after practitioner who she thought was going to be a partner. They would have cursory agreements. And every single time it fell through with the person going to someplace else for more money or other situations and competing against her. And so it wasn't until recently that she was able to finally sell her business to the right buyer. But in the meantime, she wasted years trying to get somebody in there. So you can see I've been through this experience and have watched my family go through this experience, and I am absolutely passionate on trying to make it better for the business owners that I know out there. I want to talk for a minute about the current market that we are in for those of you that are thinking about selling. And the first thing I want to cover is basically the upsides, because there are some great ones right now. And the first one is that despite all of the challenges that we have politically in our country right now, and even internationally, obviously with everything going on, we are very fortunate to have a very strong economy. So that is a good thing when you are thinking about selling a business. And the second upside is that because of that, businesses are selling rapidly, and they are also selling at record level prices. The chart that is on here is the most recent that we have. It is through the second quarter of 2017. And I want to address that chart just for a second. So first, let me explain that businesses, if you are not familiar with how they're valued as a multiple of their cash flow. Cash flow being your profit plus adding back any amortization, depreciation, any sort of discretionary earnings, that sort of thing. And it is based on a multiple of that. Now, the multiples that are shown in this chart are averages. Your particular multiple would be based on the type of industry that you have. So each business is priced a little bit differently. I want to point your attention to 2009, which is the lowest point in this chart. In 2009, of course, we were just still in the recession. And if you had a company whose cash flow was at $100,000 at that point in time and you wanted to sell it, you could, according to this chart, the average business would have been able to get $640,000 or a 6.4 multiplier of their cash flow. Okay, $640,000. Now fast forward to 2017 and you can see that there is a significant increase in the multiplier. Now that same multiplier is 9.9. So if you took the exact same business with the exact same cash flow and sold it today, you'd be able to get, on average, $990,000 for that business, or a $350,000 increase, about a third increase. That is remarkable. Now, again, these are just examples. This is what the average business went on. It does not guarantee that your business is going to sell for a 9.9 multiple, but this just does stimulate why businesses are doing incredibly well right now when they go to the market, because the economy is strong. So it's a very good time to consider selling. But of course, what goes up must come down. And now we can address our potential downsides, because there is a downside right now, or some few things to consider. The first one is to talk about the baby boomers, those of us, and I am in this generation, that are probably thinking about retiring. If you aren't already, you're thinking about it. So if you're out there thinking about selling your business, you may very well be a baby boomer. And 65%, as you can see there, are all the private businesses are owned by baby boomers. And what they're anticipating is this huge amount of transitions in the next 5 years. And you can see the number here is about 4.5 million. And the interesting thing is that is almost 4 times the national average of businesses that would sell in the next 5 years. So there will be a huge influx of businesses that are on the market. That is not great news if you're trying to differentiate yourself and you want to be in the market. There will be a flood of businesses for sale, so it's something to consider. The other thing that you need to consider is that the economy is in year 8 of a traditional 4 to 5 year recession cycle. And I did say that exactly right. In the United States, we typically have some sort of recession every 4 to 5 years. As of right now, we're about 8 years past the last recession. When the last recession theoretically ended, we're 8 years past it. In fact, this is the third longest growth period in the United States history that they've been tracking this. And they are not going to be a bit surprised, according to the economists that I've read. They will not be a bit surprised if this is the longest cycle. Now, that being said, the economists are also saying that the recession could still come in a year or two. So again, the downside, or something for you to consider if you're thinking about selling, is when a recession hits, that average multiplier will go down. And again, you've also got to consider, as more and more baby boomers get nearer the retirement age, there will be more competition for selling. Now, I have a lot of conversations with owners who are thinking about selling, and most of them, when they start down this process, they have really a couple of goals in mind. And the first one is that they really want to try to find the right buyer. And the right buyer is going to be somebody who, first of all, has the skill set necessary in order to be able to continue to operate the business. They want them to have, at least some experience in their industry, hopefully. The other thing that a right buyer brings to the table is a good cultural fit. So are they going to be able to get along, basically, and fit the culture that you've created in the company? And then the third thing is kind of an energy level or an experience level where they're going to be able to kind of take the business to the next level, because most sellers want to continue the legacy that they've created with their business. And so finding that right kind of person that can take over and fit in and really just take it to the next level is important. The second thing we have to consider, or they would consider, is to get the right price. Your business is worth whatever someone will pay for it. But again, as I mentioned earlier, many baby boomer business owners have put all of their life's earnings back into the company. And so they don't have big retirement nest eggs. So in order to be able to get the right price, that's going to be able to fund your retirement, that is also a key important goal for them. And the last one is to get the timing right. People want to make sure that they're ready emotionally, mentally, physically ready to sell, that their business is ready to sell, and that it doesn't drag on forever. Most of the folks I talk to, once they've decided, they get it in their head, they want to sell, they want it to go by quickly. So that's important. But I can tell you that if you want to achieve all of these goals, it takes an incredible amount of planning. This is not something that you can just one day decide, oh, I think I'm going to sell my business. It is not like flipping a switch. It's not like selling, your car. This takes a lot of planning. In fact, I am positive that it is much more difficult to get out of your business successfully than it was to get into your business, because of all the complications and all the things that can go wrong. So this is incredibly important. So we know that it takes planning, and that planning requires you to think about 3 specific areas that we know buyers consider before they make any sort of an offer in your business. And the first question you have to ask yourself is whether or not your business is part of a steady or a growth industry, or are you part of one that is declining? Because buyers are always looking to reduce risk. So grabbing onto a rising star of an industry is a lot less risky than trying to buy and turn around a company in a declining market. But let's explore this a little bit more. So what are some of the industries that are actually doing well? And here's a list of a few of them. And the first top several you'll see all kind of go around contracting. They're finishing contractors, residential and commercial builders, companies that do electrical and heating and cooling and that sort of stuff. And that shouldn't come as any surprise, especially here in Michigan, because we know that a lot of companies left the state during the recession recession, and we are very, very short-staffed right now in those different industries. Therefore, there is a lot of activity that's going on. Most of them, they're very busy, they're very profitable, and people are very attracted to those companies because they've got people that they might need. So that is an area that is definitely rising, and it is definitely a very attractive industry for those of you thinking about selling. IT, computer systems design, is very, very hot right now in a rising industry as computers just continue to dominate how we do our business. The next group you can see is around healthcare, and as the especially elderly healthcare services, again, as baby boomers get older, we're going to have to take care of them, and those industries are on the rise. And my last example there is translation and interpretation services, and clearly we are part of a global market right now, and so those services continue to be very, very much in demand. Now, in the downtrend, I've just got a couple here, but I think these will be pretty obvious. There are some manufacturing that is outdated, outmoded, or sells to an industry that is in the decline that could be in trouble. The second one there, brick and mortar retail, speaks for itself. We all know how online shopping has absolutely crushed some of the brick and mortar stores. And we see big names that we've been around our whole lives that are closing up because they can't make it work. And lastly, printing and printing support kinds of companies, again, because so much has gone digital that a lot of companies don't find it necessary to print nearly as much as they used to. Now, the point I want to make about this is it's not all doom and gloom. For those of you that are in a declining industry, you just may need to reinvent yourselves a bit. So, for instance, if you are in brick and mortar retail, you just may need to look for a more specific niche. Try to specialize in something. And the example that I use is Shinola. They are continuing to open up more brick and mortar stores rather than curb back because they've done such a good job at identifying exactly who their customer is, and they've done a good job of marketing to them. Same with printing and printing support. If you look at Vista Print that came along back a while ago, they're doing gangbusters. And again, that's because they changed the business model. So you just have to look for a new way of doing things, a new customer base, a new way to offer your services. And so it's not all doom and gloom. But again, as you can see, this takes time, and it's going to take some planning in order to add value to your company and make you more attractive. Okay, so moving along, the second question you have to ask yourself is whether or not your financial house is in order. And I know from my years of coaching that there are some owners that are just absolutely averse to numbers. They don't like dealing with them. Maybe they're really good in sales or in another area of their business, but they just don't enjoy their numbers. But this is what I can tell you is that numbers are the language of business, and buyers are not going to be interested in a company if your financial house is not in order. So let me talk a little bit more about that. So what I mean by that is the first thing your numbers need to be is accurate. And I know that sounds crazy, but again, looking back at the small businesses that I've worked with over the years, if you're not booking your numbers properly into QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you use, that is a problem. For instance, if you are not reporting all the cash in your business, and I'll give you an example of this. I actually called on a company, and the owner, we couldn't make the numbers make sense. The numbers just didn't add up when we were trying to value the company. There was lots and lots of revenue there, but not a lot of profit. And we just couldn't get the different ratios to work. It didn't make any sense. And when we finally push came to shove and we asked him how much cash he was taking out of the business, it was about $10,000 a week that he was taking out of the company. And this is a company that did about $2 million a year in business. Well, when you take that kind of cash out of the business, the bottom line is your numbers are not accurate. The new potential buyer is not going to accept the fact that just wink, wink, nod, nod, there's lots of cash. And it is going to impact your sale price. And basically, you've been selling your company over the years that you've been taking cash. Think of that as partly you've been selling your company over all of those years. But that's an example of what I mean by inaccurate information. So it is important that you keep up with it and that your numbers are correct. The second thing your numbers need to be is healthy. And of course, we're looking at revenue here, but we're also looking at profit. And buyers are going to be very interested in looking at the last 3 years. They're looking for very solid or numbers that are growing. And profits should be a bare bones minimum of kind of some of the standards in your industry. And if not, if your numbers are not healthy, you should be looking at putting in some cost-saving strategies in order to be able to make your bottom line more healthy. Now, again, they're going to look back at the last 3 years, so this is going to take some planning, but that's really key and important. The last thing is, what is your industry position? So are you financially leading your industry? Are you outperforming your competitors? And if not, if you are not, is there at least an area of your business where you really, really shine and you've got numbers to back that up? Because that might be attractive for a buyer. If all the rest of the numbers are sort of, just so, they may look at a particular area of your business, and that may be enough to have them make you a healthy offer. So again, it's just going to be critical that your financial house is in order. The third question you have to ask yourself is whether or not your company works without you being there all the time. And quite frankly, a buyer would love to see an owner looking exactly like this or the seller looking like this, because that would tell them that this company is extraordinarily well run and it doesn't rely on a single person to make it successful. So again, let's dive into this a little bit. And you can get an idea here. This is exactly the opposite of the guy on the last slide. This is what a lot of business owners look like. They are the hub of the wheel of their company and everything flows through them. And if that's the case, we need to change that. And the first thing you'd want to look at is, where do you have written processes? And to make sure that you have those in key areas of your organization and that people are actually following them. Again, not every inch of your organization needs to have a process written for it. However, if there are some key areas to make sure that your operation is running consistently, then that is going to be extraordinarily important. And it's going to be important because typically an owner may have a hard time delegating. And once these processes are in place, it makes it a whole lot easier. And again, I can tell you another story where I coached a contractor, one of those contractors I was talking about earlier, and this owner was convinced that he was the only person in the company that could actually do the job properly. So he worked around the clock, nights and weekends, no vacations. Now, he had a team, and he very easily could have started to delegate and teach, but he was convinced that he was the only one that could do it. The problem is, when it came time to sell, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people that were attracted to that because he had become a crutch that everybody else relied on. So the staff was not nearly as helpful as they could be, and there was concern that the company would not continue to produce the profits that it had. So written processes in key areas is absolutely critical. The second thing that you need to have is competent and empowered employees. So two things there that are important. The first one is competent. Do you have the right kinds of hiring methodology to bring in the right people, and are you paying them to be able to attract the best talent that you can? That is really, really important. And then you need to have a culture of development, and you need to empower, again, delegate, teach, train, give people the reins sometimes to be able to manage their own areas and work within, again, the confines of some of those processes. But if you have empowered and competent employees, your organization is going to run much better, and chances are that's also going to add to your bottom line. And the last area you need to have is up-to-date technology. Again, it doesn't have to be the latest and greatest state of the art, but if your industry typically needs to use a CRM system and you are still using an Excel spreadsheet, that is out-of-date technology, and that is going to raise red flags for a buyer who, again, is looking to mitigate risk. He's going to be looking at those sorts of things. So again, the last key question you need to ask yourself is, does your company run without you being there? Are you able to take off a couple of weeks, literally a couple of weeks without being there? If you can, that adds tremendous value and increases the multiplier that we talked about earlier. All right? So really the bottom line is, if you are in an industry that is either steady or growing, that's awesome. If your financial house is healthy, if you've got a healthy bottom line and great numbers that are going to back that up, that's a plus. And then lastly, that your company can operate without you being there all the time. If you've got all three of those down, then your company is absolutely ready to sell. But what the heck do you do when your company isn't ready for sale? Again, this goes back to that planning. If your industry is in a downslide, if your numbers don't look great, or if you work 1,000,000 hours a week, 7 days a week, you probably need a little help in order to prepare your company for sale. So you need to take some action, right? You're going to need to, if you want to sell it, you're going to need to take some action. And these are all things that make Clear Vision unique in the marketplace, because we help our clients who are not prepared get prepared, and then we can take them all the way through to the transaction. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is get clear on your goals. Where do you want to be in 1 to 3 years? If you're thinking about selling, what is that going to look like? And what kind of value do you need to have in your company in order to be able to reach the goals that you have? And one of the things that we help our clients do is set goals and create plans. The second goal that you should have is to increase your value by actually executing on those plans so that you can attract a real quality buyer and get those higher multiples. And again, that is something that we can do. So as you create those plans, we can actually help you execute them and help you remove the roadblocks that need to get out of the way in order to add value. And lastly, you're eventually going to have to find the right buyer by marketing the company and then negotiating the sale in order to reach your goals. And again, the services that we offer are all the mergers and acquisitions services. We will help you value your company. We will help you find the right buyer. We help do the negotiating, and we help all the way through to the closing, again, to help you reach your goals. So if after hearing all of this, you're still thinking that I may be interested in selling within the next couple of years, I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of our free transitional assessment. We're going to be sending an email after this webinar, and it will be inviting you to ask for that, and we will be happy to supply that. It will give you a very clear picture where you are today, what areas are you strong in, what areas do you need to improve in, and then you'll know exactly what lies ahead in order for you to get to the actual sale of your business. Again, my name is Dawn Drozd, and on behalf of our whole team, I want to thank you for being here on this call today. I really hope that you've gotten a tremendous amount of value from this information, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at hello at clearvision.us.com. And if you want to schedule a complimentary transition coaching session, you can email us at businessmanager, but that's businessmgr at clearvision.us.com. Again, I hope you got a lot out of today, and I wish you lots of luck and success in the future.